I never expected my life to change so dramatically on a Tuesday night in Columbus. But there I was, Marina Evans, 42-year-old socialite extraordinaire, standing in the doorway of an upscale pool hall, my Louboutins clicking against the polished floor. The place reeked of leather, whiskey, and ambition, a far cry from my usual champagne-soaked galas. As I sauntered towards the bar, my eyes were drawn to a brunette beauty lining up a shot at one of the tables. Her lean body was wrapped in a form-fitting black dress that left little to the imagination. I found myself mesmerized by her fluid movements, the way her green eyes narrowed in concentration. "Damn," I muttered under my breath as she sank 3 balls in quick succession. The small crowd around her table erupted in cheers. I didn't realize I was staring until she looked up, our eyes meeting across the room. A smirk played at the corners of her lips, and she raised an eyebrow in challenge. Before I knew it, my feet were carrying me towards her table. "Impressive," I said, my voice a purr. "Care to teach me a few tricks?" She laughed, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "I'm Amanda," she replied, extending her hand, "and I'd be happy to show you the ropes, for a price." I grinned, already feeling the spark of competition ignite within me. "Name it. If I win, you buy drinks for the rest of the night. If you win, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." The game that followed was nothing short of exhilarating. Amanda was good, damn good. But I wasn't about to let her know that I'd been hustling pool since my college days. We traded shots and barbs, the tension between us growing with each passing minute. "So, what brings a high society lady like yourself to a place like this?" Amanda asked as she lined up another shot. I chuckled, leaning on my cue. "Who says I'm high society?" She glanced at my designer outfit and raised an eyebrow. Lucky guess. As the night wore on, our game became less about the pool and more about the dance happening between us. Every time Amanda leaned over the table, I found my eyes drawn to the curve of her back, the way her hair fell across her face. By the time I sank the 8-ball, winning our match, the air between us was electric. Amanda's eyes sparkled with a mixture of surprise and admiration. Well, she said, setting down her cue. "Looks like you've got some tricks up your sleeve after all." We made our way to the bar, where Amanda insisted on buying me a drink despite her loss. As we sipped our cocktails, she regaled me with stories of her life as a flight attendant, tales of exotic locales and mile-high adventures that had me hanging on her every word. "You must have seen some incredible places," I said, leaning in closer. Amanda's smile turned mischievous. "Oh, honey, you have no idea, but sometimes the most exciting adventures happen right here at home." The way she looked at me then made my heart race. I found myself imagining what it would be like to kiss those full lips, to run my fingers through her silky hair. As the night drew to a close, neither of us seemed eager to leave. We exchanged numbers, promising to meet up for another game soon. But as I watched Amanda walk away, her hips swaying hypnotically, I knew that this was more than just the beginning of a friendship. It was the start of something that would turn my carefully constructed world upside down. The weeks following that fateful night at the pool hall flew by in a whirlwind of stolen glances, playful banter, and an undeniable tension that crackled between Amanda and me like static electricity. Our weekly pool matches became a sacred ritual, a time when I could shed the expectations of my high society life and just be Marina, the woman who was falling hard for a gorgeous flight attendant. Each time we met, I found myself more drawn to Amanda's quick wit and infectious laugh. She had a way of making me feel alive, of challenging me in ways I'd never experienced before. And gosh, the way she looked at me sometimes. It was enough to make my knees weak. One night, after a particularly heated game, we found ourselves lingering in the dimly lit parking lot. The air was thick with unspoken desires, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "You know," Amanda said, her voice low and husky, "I think I'm getting better at reading your tells." I raised an eyebrow, trying to ignore the way her proximity was affecting me. "Oh, really? And what are my tells?" She stepped closer, her green eyes glinting in the streetlight. "The way you bite your lip when you're lining up a difficult shot, the little crease between your eyebrows when you're concentrating, and the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention." My breath caught in my throat. "Amanda, Before I could finish my thought, she closed the distance between us, her lips meeting mine in a kiss that sent shockwaves through my entire body. It was soft at first, tentative, but quickly grew more passionate as we both gave in to the desire we'd been fighting for weeks. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, I knew there was no going back. This thing between us, whatever it was, had just become very, very real. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. The next morning, I woke to a flurry of texts from my mother, reminding me about the upcoming annual Evans family gathering. It was an event I usually dreaded, a weekend of passive-aggressive comments, thinly veiled judgments, and the constant pressure to live up to my family's lofty expectations. This year, however, the thought of attending alone was even more daunting. How could I face my family's interrogations about my love life when all I could think about was Amanda? As I sat in my penthouse, nursing a cup of coffee and contemplating my options, an idea began to form. It was crazy, potentially disastrous, but the more I thought about it, the more appealing it became. I picked up my phone and dialed Amanda's number, my heart racing as I waited for her to answer. "Marina?" Her voice was sleepy but warm. "Everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Amanda, I have a favor to ask, a big one." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm listening. My family has this annual gathering coming up and I was wondering if you might consider attending with me. As my friend, of course." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Finally, Amanda spoke. "You want me to meet your family? As your friend?" I could hear the confusion in her voice, and possibly a hint of hurt. "It's complicated," I explained hastily. "My family, they're not exactly open-minded. But I can't bear the thought of going alone, and you're the only person I want by my side." Another pause. Then, "Okay, I'm in. But Marina, we need to talk about what's really going on between us." Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by a wave of anxiety. She was right, of course. We couldn't keep dancing around our feelings forever. "You're right," I agreed. "Why don't you come over tonight? We can discuss everything." As I hung up the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of a precipice. Inviting Amanda into my world, even under the guise of friendship, was a risk. But as I thought about her smile, her laugh, the way she made me feel, I knew it was a risk worth taking. Little did I know, this decision would not only change the course of our relationship, but also thrust us into the middle of a family drama I never saw coming. The Evans family gathering was about to become a lot more interesting than anyone could have anticipated. The anticipation of Amanda's arrival had me on edge all day. I paced my penthouse, alternating between bouts of nervous cleaning and anxious outfit changes. By the time the doorbell rang, I had worked myself into a frenzy. When I opened the door, the sight of Amanda took my breath away. She stood there in a simple black dress, her brunette hair cascading over her shoulders, and a bottle of wine in her hand. Her green eyes sparkled with a mix of nervousness and excitement that mirrored my own emotions. "Hi," she said softly, a small smile playing on her lips. "Hi," I echoed, suddenly feeling like a teenager on her first date. "Come in." As Amanda stepped into my home, I was acutely aware of how different our worlds were. My penthouse, with its modern art and designer furniture, seemed a far cry from the down-to-earth woman standing before me. We settled on the couch, glasses of wine in hand, an awkward silence stretching between us. Finally, Amanda spoke. "So, about this family gathering." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "It's a big deal in my family. Everyone will be there expecting me to be the perfect Marina Evans they've always known. But the truth is, I'm tired of pretending." Amanda's eyes softened. "Pretending what?" "That I'm happy living up to their expectations, that I'm content with the life they've mapped out for me." I paused, gathering my courage. "That I'm not falling for a woman who's turned my world upside down." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Amanda set down her wine glass, her gaze never leaving mine. "Marina," she said softly, "I think we both know this is more than just friendship." And then she was kissing me, and the world fell away. It was different from our first kiss in the parking lot, slower, deeper, filled with a tenderness that made my heart ache. I lost myself in the softness of her lips, the gentle caress of her hands on my face. When we finally parted, both breathless, I knew there was no going back. Whatever happened next, we were in this together. "So," Amanda said, a mischievous glint in her eye, "tell me about this family of yours. What am I getting myself into?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. "Oh, where do I even begin? There's my mother, the quintessential socialite who's never met a charity gala she didn't like. My father, the business tycoon who thinks emotions are for the weak. And don't even get me started on my cousins. As the night wore on, we talked and laughed, sharing stories and stealing kisses. The wine flowed freely, and with each passing hour, the line between friendship and something more blurred further. It was well past midnight when Amanda pulled me close, her lips brushing against my ear. "You know," she whispered, "I think I need a tour of this fancy penthouse of yours." The implications of her words sent a shiver down my spine. I stood, taking her hand and leading her towards the bedroom. What followed was a night of passion and discovery, our bodies moving together in perfect harmony. It was tender and fierce, gentle and urgent, all at once. As we lay tangled in the sheets afterward, I marveled at how right it felt to be in Amanda's arms. But morning brought with it a stark reality check. As Amanda slept peacefully beside me, my phone buzzed with a message from my family's lawyer. The annual gathering wasn't just a social event this year. It was a meeting to discuss the distribution of my grandmother's $50 million estate. My heart sank as I read the details. The inheritance had become a point of contention among family members, with accusations of favoritism and underhanded dealings flying. And now, I was expected to be there, to take sides in a battle I wanted no part of. I glanced at Amanda, still blissfully unaware of the storm we were about to walk into. How could I drag her into this mess? But the thought of facing my family alone, especially now that I had tasted what true happiness felt like, was unbearable. As if sensing my distress, Amanda stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Good morning, beautiful," she murmured, pulling me close for a kiss. I melted into her embrace, pushing away thoughts of family drama and million-dollar disputes. For now, I would savor this moment, this feeling of completeness I'd never experienced before. But as Amanda's lips trailed down my neck, igniting a fire within me, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that our blissful bubble was about to burst. The family gathering loomed on the horizon, promising not just awkward conversations and probing questions, but a potential minefield of secrets and lies. Little did I know, the next few days would test not only our budding relationship, but also everything I thought I knew about my family and myself. The stage was set for a drama that would make even the most scandalous soap opera pale in comparison. As Amanda and I lost ourselves in each other once more, I silently prayed that what we had found together would be strong enough to weather the storm ahead. Because something told me that by the time this family gathering was over, nothing would ever be the same again. The Evans family estate loomed before us, a sprawling mansion that seemed to mock the very concept of subtlety. As Amanda and I stepped out of the taxi, I could feel her tension radiating off her in waves. "Gosh, Marina," she whispered, her eyes wide. "You didn't tell me you lived in Downton Abbey." I squeezed her hand reassuringly. "Trust me, the drama inside makes Downton look like a sitcom." As we approached the front door, I caught sight of my cousin Veronica peering out from behind a curtain. Great. The vultures were already circling. "Remember," I murmured to Amanda, "we're just friends. Best friends." She nodded, but I didn't miss the flicker of hurt in her eyes. Before I could say anything else, the door swung open, revealing my mother in all her Chanel-clad glory. "Marina, darling," she trilled, air-kissing my cheeks. Her gaze fell on Amanda, and I saw the briefest tightening around her eyes. "And who's this?" "Mother, this is Amanda, my friend." The pause was infinitesimal, but I knew my mother caught it. Her smile never wavered as she ushered us inside, but I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. The next few hours were a whirlwind of introductions and thinly veiled interrogations. Amanda handled it all with grace, her flight attendant charm on full display, but I could see the strain starting to show around her eyes. It was during pre-dinner drinks that things took a turn. My cousin Veronica cornered us by the bar, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "So, Amanda," she purred, "how did you and Marina meet? It must be quite a story." I opened my mouth to spin our prepared tale, but Amanda beat me to it. "At a pool hall, actually," she said, her voice light. "Marina's quite the shark." Veronica's eyebrows shot up. "A pool hall? How? Quaint." The way she said it made my blood boil. I was about to snap back when I felt Amanda's hand on my arm, a gentle warning. "Oh, it's not so bad," Amanda replied, her smile never faltering. "You'd be surprised at the interesting people you meet." politicians, CEOs, even the occasional socialite looking to let her hair down. Veronica's smile froze, and I had to stifle a laugh. Score one for Amanda. As we made our way to the dining room, I caught Amanda's eye and mouthed a silent, "Thank you." She winked in response, and for a moment I forgot about the impending family drama. That moment of peace was short-lived. Dinner was a minefield of loaded questions and barbed comments. My father held court at the head of the table, pontificating about the family business and the importance of legacy. "It's a shame, really," he said, swirling his whiskey. "Some people just don't understand the value of what they've been given." His eyes flicked to me, and I knew he was referring to my decision to pursue art instead of joining the family firm. I gritted my teeth, feeling Amanda's concerned gaze on me. It was as coffee was being served that the bomb dropped. My Uncle Charles cleared his throat, his face grave. "I'm afraid I have some concerning news," he began. "It seems there's been some irregularities discovered in grandmother's will." The room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, voices raised, and in the middle of it all, I caught Amanda's wide-eyed gaze. This was not what she had signed up for. As the argument reached a fever pitch, I noticed Amanda slip out of the room. Concerned, I followed her, finding her in the hallway, phone in hand. "Everything okay?" I asked softly. She jumped, quickly pocketing her phone. "Yeah, just needed some air." Something about her expression made me uneasy, but before I could question her further, my brother appeared in the doorway. "Marina," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "A word?" I followed him into the study, my heart pounding. He turned to face me, his eyes narrowed. "What's really going on with you and Amanda?" I felt the blood drain from my face. "What do you mean?" He scoffed. "Please, I've seen the way you look at her, the way she touches you. You're not exactly subtle, sis." Panic clawed at my throat. "James, Save it." He cut me off. "I don't care who you sleep with. But if this gets out, if it affects the family's reputation..." He let the threat hang in the air. I stood there, frozen, as he brushed past me and out of the room. My carefully constructed facade was crumbling, and I had no idea how to stop it. When I finally composed myself enough to rejoin the others, I found Amanda deep in conversation with my father's personal assistant. They fell silent as I approached, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As we prepared for bed that night, in the oppressive silence of my childhood room, I longed to reach out to Amanda, to seek comfort in her arms. But the weight of secrecy and the growing unease kept me rooted to my side of the bed. Little did I know the real storm was yet to come. As I drifted off into an uneasy sleep, I had no idea that the next day would bring revelations that would shake the very foundations of my world, and test the strength of my newfound love in ways I never could have imagined. The morning sun filtered through the heavy curtains, casting an eerie glow across the room. I stirred, reaching out for Amanda, only to find her side of the bed empty and cold. Panic surged through me as I sat up, memories of last night's revelations flooding back. A soft knock at the door jolted me from my thoughts. "Miss Evans?" It was Harrison, my father's personal assistant. "Your presence is requested in the study. Immediately." My stomach dropped. In the Evans household, immediately was never good news. I found my father behind his massive oak desk, looking every bit the imposing patriarch. Our family lawyer, Mr. Simmons, sat across from him, a grim expression on his face. "Marina," my father began, his voice unnervingly calm. "Mr. Simmons has uncovered some disturbing information regarding grandmother's will." Mr. Simmons cleared his throat. "It appears someone has been attempting to manipulate the distribution of the estate. We've found evidence of forged documents and tampered financial records." The room spun. "What are you saying?" "We're saying," my father cut in, "that someone in this family is trying to cheat the rest of us out of our rightful inheritance." The accusation hung heavy in the air. I struggled to process the implications, my mind racing. "But who would?" "That's what we need to find out," Mr. Simmons interjected. "And quickly. The longer this goes on, the more complicated it becomes." As they continued discussing legal strategies and potential suspects, my thoughts drifted to Amanda. Where was she? And why did I have a nagging feeling that she was somehow involved in all this? I excused myself as soon as I could, rushing back to my room. Relief washed over me when I found Amanda there, freshly showered and dressed. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Just went for an early morning walk, needed to clear my head after last night." I wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at me. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "Beach house. 30 minutes. Come alone." Torn between my growing suspicions and family obligations, I made a split-second decision. "I need to run an errand," I told Amanda. "Will you be okay here for a bit?" She nodded, and I couldn't help but notice the relief that flashed across her face. The drive to our family's beach house was tense, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. James was waiting for me on the porch, a manila envelope in his hands. "You're not going to like this," he said without preamble, handing me the envelope. Inside were photos, surveillance shots of Amanda meeting with a man I recognized as one of our family's longtime rivals in business. The timestamps showed these meetings had been happening for weeks, long before Amanda and I had even met. My world tilted on its axis. "This doesn't prove anything," I said weakly, even as doubt clouded my mind. James's expression softened slightly. "Sis, I know you care about her. But you need to consider the possibility that she's not who she says she is." I left the beach house in a daze, my heart and mind at war. When I returned to the main house, I found Amanda in the garden, deep in conversation with my Uncle Charles. They fell silent as I approached, exchanging a look that sent chills down my spine. That evening, as we prepared for another tension-filled family dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something crucial. The weight of secrets, both mine and potentially Amanda's, threatened to suffocate me. As we descended the grand staircase, Amanda's hand found mine, squeezing gently. For a moment, I allowed myself to believe that everything would be okay, that there was a logical explanation for it all. That illusion shattered the moment we entered the dining room. A hush fell over the assembled family members, all eyes turning to us. My father stood at the head of the table, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "I think it's time we all laid our cards on the table," he announced, his voice cutting through the silence like a knife. "No more secrets, no more lies." My heart pounded in my chest as I felt Amanda stiffen beside me. Whatever was coming, I knew our carefully constructed facade was about to come crashing down. Just then, a commotion erupted in the foyer. The butler appeared, looking flustered. "I'm sorry to interrupt, sir, but there's been a delivery. It's marked urgent." My father waved him off impatiently, but not before I caught a glimpse of the package, a thick envelope with no return address. As my father launched into what was sure to be a blistering tirade, I couldn't tear my eyes away from that envelope. Something told me its contents would change everything. The tension in the room was palpable, a powder keg ready to explode. I looked at Amanda, searching her face for any sign of the woman I'd fallen for. She met my gaze, her green eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. Was it fear, guilt, or something else entirely? As my father's voice rose, laying out accusations and demanding answers, I made a decision. Whatever came next, whatever truths were revealed, I would face it head on. For better or worse, the time for hiding was over. Little did I know, the revelations that were about to unfold would test not just my relationship with Amanda, but everything I thought I knew about my family, my past, and myself. The stage was set for a confrontation that would either tear us all apart or forge unbreakable bonds. As I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come, I caught Amanda's eye once more. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between us. Whatever happened next, we were in this together. The true test of our love was about to begin. The dining room crackled with tension as my father's accusations hung in the air. I could feel Amanda's hand trembling in mine, and for a moment I considered fleeing the room, dragging her with me. But there was no running from this. Not anymore. "Marina," my father's voice cut through my thoughts like a blade. "Care to explain why your friend has been seen consorting with Jonathan Blackwell?" The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Jonathan Blackwell, our family's biggest business rival and the man rumored to have been behind several attempts to sabotage Evans Industries. I turned to Amanda, searching her face for any sign of denial or explanation. But what I saw there made my blood run cold. Guilt, mixed with a steely determination I'd never seen before. "It's not what you think," Amanda began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hand. But before she could continue, my brother James burst into the room, waving a stack of papers. "You won't believe what I just found in the study," he announced, his eyes wild with a mix of triumph and disbelief. As James laid out the documents on the table, a picture began to emerge that shook me to my core. Financial records, emails, and surveillance photos painted a damning picture of corruption within Evans Industries. And at the center of it all was my own father. "This is preposterous," my father blustered, his face turning an alarming shade of red. "These documents are clearly forgeries." But the evidence was overwhelming. Years of embezzlement, tax evasion, and underhanded deals with none other than Jonathan Blackwell himself, the very man my father had just accused Amanda of conspiring with. As the room erupted into chaos, with family members hurling accusations and denials, I felt Amanda tug at my arm. "We need to talk," she whispered urgently. "Somewhere private." In a daze, I let her lead me out to the garden. The cool night air did little to clear the fog of confusion and betrayal swirling in my mind. "I'm so sorry, Marina," Amanda began, her green eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to fall in love with you." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" I managed to choke out. Amanda took a deep breath. "I was hired by Jonathan Blackwell to infiltrate your family, to gather evidence of your father's illegal activities. But I swear I had no idea how deep it went." I stumbled backward, feeling as though the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. "So everything, us, it was all a lie?" "No." Amanda reached for me, her face contorted with anguish. "What I feel for you is real, Marina, more real than anything I've ever felt. I was going to tell you everything, to walk away from the job. But then I overheard your uncle talking about the missing documents, and I realized how much deeper this went than anyone knew." My mind reeled, trying to reconcile the woman I'd fallen for with this new reality. "Why should I believe you?" I asked, hating the tremor in my voice. Amanda's response was cut short by a commotion from the house. We rushed back inside to find my brother restraining our father, who was attempting to shove armfuls of papers into the fireplace. "It's over, Dad," James said, his voice thick with emotion. "The police are on their way." As if on cue, the wail of sirens pierced the night. The next few hours passed in a blur of police statements, shocked family members, and reporters gathering like vultures at the gates of the estate. Through it all, Amanda never left my side. Despite my lingering doubts and the maelstrom of emotions warring within me, I found myself grateful for her steady presence. It wasn't until the early hours of the morning, as we sat huddled on the steps of the police station, that the full weight of everything crashed down on me. My father in custody, my family's legacy in tatters, and the woman I loved revealed to be someone I barely knew. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Amanda took my hand, her touch both familiar and foreign. "That depends on you," she said softly. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness or your trust, but if you'll let me, I want to explain everything. No more secrets, no more lies." I looked into her eyes, searching for any trace of deception. What I saw instead was a vulnerability and openness that tugged at my heart. "Okay," I said finally. "But not here. Let's go home." As we climbed into a taxi, exhaustion settling into our bones, I realized that home no longer meant the mansion we'd left behind or even my penthouse in the city. Home, somehow, had become wherever Amanda and I were together. The sun was peeking over the horizon as we reached my apartment. As Amanda stepped inside, hesitating as if unsure of her welcome, I made a decision. Whatever came next, whatever truths were revealed, I would face it with an open heart. Because despite everything, despite the lies and the betrayal and the world crumbling around us, one truth remained unshakable. I loved her. And sometimes, love is enough to build a new foundation on the ashes of the old. As we settled on the couch, ready to bare our souls and face the consequences of our choices, I felt a glimmer of hope. This was our chance for a new beginning, a chance to rewrite our story on our own terms. Little did I know, the greatest challenge to our love was yet to come. But in that moment, with Amanda's hand in mine and the promise of honesty between us, I was ready to face whatever the future held. The days following the Evans family meltdown were a whirlwind of police interviews, legal consultations, and endless cups of coffee. Amanda and I had barely left my penthouse, our world shrinking to these four walls as we grappled with the fallout of our shattered lives. It was on a particularly gloomy Tuesday morning that I found myself staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back at me, dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess, and wearing Amanda's borrowed t-shirt. This wasn't the Marina Evans I'd spent a lifetime cultivating. Gosh, I muttered to myself. What a mess. A soft knock on the door startled me. Marina? Amanda's voice was hesitant. Your brother's on the phone. He says it's urgent. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever new crisis awaited. As I walked into the living room, I couldn't help but notice how at home Amanda looked, curled up on my couch with a mug of tea. It was a dangerous thought, one I quickly pushed aside as I took the phone. James, what's going on? My brother's voice was tight with stress. They're calling an emergency family meeting, today, and they want you to bring Amanda. My heart raced. What? Why? I don't know, but Marina, it doesn't sound good. Just to be prepared for anything, okay? As I hung up, I caught Amanda's questioning gaze. We've been summoned, I said, trying for levity but falling short. Apparently, the Evans clan wants an encore performance. The drive to the family estate was tense, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. As we pulled up to the imposing gates, I felt Amanda's hand slip into mine. Whatever happens in there, she said softly. I'm with you. All the way. I squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her touch. Together, then. The scene that greeted us inside was far from what I expected. Instead of the usual cacophony of arguing relatives, a heavy silence blanketed the room. My mother sat rigid in her armchair, while various aunts, uncles, and cousins were scattered around, their faces a mix of shock and curiosity. At the center of it all stood my father's personal assistant, Harrison, looking decidedly uncomfortable. Ah, Marina, he said, his voice unnaturally high. And, Amanda, thank you for coming. We have some developments to discuss. As we took our seats, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to step off a cliff into the unknown. Harrison cleared his throat. In light of recent events, and at the behest of the board of directors, I've been tasked with overseeing the transition of Evans Industries. As part of this process, we've uncovered some surprising information. He paused, his eyes flicking nervously between Amanda and me. It seems that the late Mrs. Evans, your grandmother, had made some changes to her will that were overlooked until now. The room held its collective breath as Harrison continued. According to these documents, a significant portion of the Evans estate was to be held in trust for a granddaughter previously unknown to the family. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the room. I felt Amanda stiffen beside me. What are you saying? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Harrison took a deep breath. Marina, according to these papers, Amanda is your cousin, your father's illegitimate daughter. The world tilted on its axis. I turned to Amanda, searching her face for any sign of denial or shock. But what I saw there was a mixture of guilt and resignation. You knew? I breathed, feeling as though the air had been sucked from the room. Amanda's eyes filled with tears. I found out just before I met you. I never meant for any of this to happen, Marina. I was just trying to find my place in this family, to understand where I came from. The room erupted into chaos, accusations and questions flying. But I could only focus on Amanda, on the woman I'd fallen in love with, now revealed to be flesh and blood. I think, I said, my voice cutting through the din, that Amanda and I need a moment alone. As we stepped out onto the terrace, the cool air did little to clear the fog of confusion in my mind. Amanda stood before me, vulnerable and raw in a way I'd never seen her. I'm so sorry, Marina, she began, her voice thick with emotion. I wanted to tell you so many times, but I was afraid of losing you, afraid of what it meant for us. I closed my eyes, trying to process the tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, and underneath it all, a love that refused to be extinguished. When I opened my eyes, I saw Amanda watching me, her face a canvas of hope and fear. In that moment, I made a decision that would change both our lives forever. I love you, I said, the words feeling both foreign and achingly familiar on my tongue. I love you, and that doesn't change just because we share some DNA. Amanda's eyes widened. But what about the family? The inheritance? Everything that's happened? I laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. Gosh, Amanda, haven't you realized by now? You are my family. The rest. We'll figure it out together. As I pulled her into my arms, feeling her tears soak into my shoulder, I knew we had a long road ahead of us. There would be legal battles, family drama, and countless challenges to face. But standing there, with the woman I loved in my arms and the promise of a future together, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: hope. We walked back into the house hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. The shocked faces of our family greeted us, but for once, I didn't care what they thought. "Listen up, everyone," I announced, my voice steady and clear. "Things are going to change around here, and they're going to change starting now." As I laid out my vision for the future of Evans Industries, with Amanda by my side, I felt a sense of purpose I'd been missing my entire life. We had a chance to rebuild, to make things right, and to create a legacy we could be proud of. And we were going to do it together. The months following the explosive family meeting were a whirlwind of change. Amanda and I threw ourselves into restructuring Evans Industries, determined to clean up the mess my father had left behind. It wasn't easy. There were late nights, heated arguments, and more than a few moments where I questioned everything. But through it all, Amanda was my rock, my partner in every sense of the word. As winter gave way to spring, we found ourselves settling into a new normal. The initial shock of our familial connection had faded, replaced by a deep bond that transcended any conventional definition of love. We were family, lovers, and best friends all rolled into one, and somehow it worked. It was on a crisp Saturday morning that Amanda suggested we revisit the pool hall where we first met. As we stepped inside, the familiar scent of leather and whiskey washed over me, bringing with it a flood of memories. "God, can you believe it's been a year?" Amanda mused, running her hand along the polished wood of a pool table. I chuckled, picking up a cue stick. "A year since you hustled me, you mean?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh please, you were practically begging to be hustled." As we fell into the familiar rhythm of the game, I marveled at how far we'd come. The woman across the table from me was still the same Amanda who had captured my heart that first night, but she was also so much more now. My partner, my family, my home. "You know," I said, lining up a shot, "I've been thinking about what you said, about making things right." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" I took a deep breath. "I want to use my share of the inheritance to set up a foundation. For kids in the foster system, kids like you were. To give them the chances you never had." The pool cue clattered to the floor as Amanda rounded the table, pulling me into a fierce embrace. "Marina Evans," she whispered against my neck, "you never cease to amaze me." As we left the pool hall, hand in hand, I felt a sense of excitement building. "What do you say we take a walk through the park?" I suggested, trying to keep my voice casual. Amanda agreed, and soon we found ourselves strolling through Columbus Park, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the grass. My heart pounded as we approached the spot I'd carefully chosen, a secluded bench overlooking the lake. "Amanda," I began, my voice shaky despite my best efforts. "This past year has been the craziest, most challenging, and absolutely best year of my life. And it's all because of you." I dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring I'd been carrying for weeks. "I know our situation is unconventional, to say the least, but I can't imagine spending my life with anyone else. Will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still as I waited for her answer. Then, to my utter shock, Amanda burst out laughing. "Oh my God, Marina," she gasped between giggles, reaching into her own pocket. "Great minds really do think alike." And there, in her palm, was another ring box. We collapsed onto the bench, both laughing and crying as we exchanged rings and kisses. It was messy and perfect and utterly us. As we walked home, giddy with joy and plans for the future, I couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns that had brought us to this moment. From that first game of pool to family scandals and unexpected revelations, every step had led us here. "You know," Amanda mused as we approached our building, "we're going to have one hell of a story to tell at our wedding." I grinned, pulling her close. "Oh honey, they have no idea." The next few weeks were a blur of wedding planning and foundation logistics. We decided on a small ceremony, just close friends and the few family members who had stood by us through everything. As for the foundation, we threw ourselves into it with the same passion we'd brought to saving Evans Industries. The night before our wedding, as we lay tangled together in our bed, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked softly. "Any of it?" Amanda propped herself up on one elbow, her green eyes serious in the dim light. "Not for a second," she said firmly. "Every choice, every mistake, every crazy twist of fate led me to you. How could I regret that?" As I pulled her in for a kiss, I silently echoed her sentiment. Our path had been far from conventional, riddled with obstacles and surprises at every turn, but it had brought us here to this moment, on the cusp of a future brighter than I'd ever dared to dream. The next day, as we stood hand in hand, exchanging vows in front of our chosen family, I knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where we were meant to be. Our love story might not be one for the fairy tales, but it was ours, messy and complicated and beautifully real. As we sealed our vows with a kiss, cheers erupting around us, I caught Amanda's eye and saw my own joy reflected there. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever surprises life had in store, we would face them together. Because in the end, that's what our story was really about. Not scandal or secrets or family drama, but two women who found each other against all odds and chose every day to build a life together. And really, what could be more romantic than that?